When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out at the top of her voice and said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." The king said to her, "Don't be afraid. What do you see?" The woman said, "I see a ghostly figure coming up out of the earth." "What does he look like?" he asked. "An old man wearing a robe is coming up," she said.
So what happened here? The witch faked Samuel's appearance. Saul was tricked into believing that it was really Samuel when it was only some type of deception on the part of the witch. The Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament, uses the word egistramuthos, ventriloquist, to describe the woman in verse 9 and those who practice the same type of divination. This indicates that she had the ability to deceive people into thinking there was some other personage present by the throwing of her voice. Though she pretended ignorance, she recognized Saul from the beginning. We should not assume that his disguise fooled her. Notice that she was the only one that saw Samuel. Saul did not. Saul was prevented from viewing the spirit. Consequently, she only pretended to be surprised by the appearance of Samuel when, most likely, she saw nothing. Since the king saw and heard nothing, he had to rely on the woman to tell him what this spirit was saying. He did not converse directly to Samuel. To say that Saul would die the next day in battle was not any great prediction, seeing that they were outnumbered by the Philistines. Finally, Saul did not die by the hand of the Philistines the next day. He killed himself after he had been wounded. Therefore the prophecy was false. Since it was a false prophecy, it could not have been given by God. All these arguments have led many to assume we have a hoax on the part of the woman and not a genuine appearance of Samuel. There are also a number of other reasons why the appearance of Samuel to Saul at Endor is denied. It seems to contradict the way God works in the rest of Scripture, as well as give credence to Spiritism.
"Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God."
Because of these factors, many Bible students deny that the dead prophet Samuel actually appeared to speak to Saul. It has been argued that the witch, through demonic power, actually called up Samuel from the realm of the dead. This would be a demonic miracle. The Bible warns us about the power of the devil. Paul wrote,
"The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception for those who are perishing, because they refused to love the truth and so be saved."
Though Satan and his demons can perform deceiving signs, they are always under God's ultimate control. God is the one who has the authority over life and death. In addition, there is no evidence that Satan, or his demons, can perform actual miracles. Therefore, the miracle of calling the spirit of Samuel from the realm of the righteous dead is not something that Satan, or his demons, have the power to do. Let us also not forget that the Bible teaches that the dead cannot return to the living. An example of this is after the death of his son, David testified that the child could not return to him.
"But now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me."
Since the Bible teaches the dead cannot return, this could not have been the appearance of dead prophet Samuel. This word literally means master of spirits. The corresponding parts of the Septuagint refer to egistramuthos, gastromancy, a form of necromantic ventriloquism, in which the voice seems to be located in the stomach. The Septuagint uses the word egistramuthos, a ventriloquist, to describe the woman and those who exercised kindred arts. Though pretending ignorance, the woman doubtless recognizes Saul from the first. It was she who saw Samuel and reported his words. The king himself saw and heard nothing. It required no great skill in a practiced diviner to forecast the general issue of the battle about to take place, and the disaster that would overtake Saul and his sons, while if the forecast had proved untrue, the narrative of the Witch of Endor would never have been written. Saul, in fact, was not slain, but killed himself. The incident, therefore, may best be ranked in the same category as the feats of modern mediumship. It was believed by the ancient Greeks, who called the phenomenon egistromuthos, and Romans that noises emanating from a person's belly could be the voices of the spirits of the dead or, in the worst-case scenario, a sign of demonic possession. A ventriloquist, later called a gastromancer, was a seer, or psychic, who interpreted the sounds coming from the person's abdomen, and depending on the supposed source, passed along predictions of the future, messages from great-grandma, or bad news about the spiritual future of the patient. Ventriloquism and gastromancy, as a means of divination, persisted through the Middle Ages, and even up to the 18th century in Europe and America. Eventually, however, as the public ardor for spiritualism flowered into the age of stage magic, the term ventriloquism came to be used for the trick of throwing one's voice in front of an audience. By the late 19th century, ventriloquy was a standard act in the repertoire of vaudeville, and the wooden ventriloquist's dummy had become an icon of popular culture. Interestingly, however, ventriloquy has never been able to completely shed its overtones of creepiness, as the number of horror movies involving a ventriloquist's dummy which moves around quite well on its own attests.